Hello, my name is Russell Smyre, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation that talks about the difference between a leader and a manager. And, and one of the things that is clearly understood is that every organization needs a leader, every organization needs a manager. And so when you look at the difference between the two, I think I'd like to start off first by talking about the definition. When we define leadership, leadership is very difficult to define with a specific one recognized that everybody agrees on, but there are many different definitions in leadership and literature. And so when we look at it, leadership can be understood as a behavior, it's understood as a style, a skill, a process, even a responsibility that one takes on, and oftentimes they develop a relationship of influence, because they are often called upon to bring about influence in regards to the organizations that they participate in. A leader also carries a capacity to really command a collective action. They have this ability to really to not only influence but to motivate the internal mechanisms and decisions and beliefs that people bring to the table, where they're able to help them to rally around a concept or an idea. And so a leader carries a social influence. It can be defined as a cultural influence. It's the process of influencing a group of individuals toward a particular common goal. And lastly, a leader oftentimes will have the ability to motivate and move a group of people toward a preferred future vision or an idea. Now, when we look at a manager in regards, managers oftentimes they really employ the direction of a group of an organization from a supervisory position, and they are a person with a group task oriented assignments. They oftentimes are trying to manage a group of people. And and the last thing is that a manager also is a manager of people, they processes and systems. So a manager typically will look at managing people, processes, systems to help maintain a specific assignment that's already been detailed prior. Um, One of the things when you look the difference between a leader and a manager is to look at what they focus on. Leaders oftentimes are focused on inspiring people and people groups, whereas a manager oftentimes is focused on trying to control, maybe a strong word, but the best word I can think of is controlling people, trying to control resources, controlling processes. Not where they take away value from someone, but where they're trying to maintain a consistency, status quo. So they focus on controlling things, controlling systems, processes, outcomes, those types of things. Leaders also motivate people, and they motivate people groups. And leaders oftentimes creating a passion that's internally within people, where they're able to buy into these ideas, oftentimes things that haven't been seen, or is cutting edge, or you're trying to create something new. So leaders focus on their being able to create new efficiency methods, whereas a manager will maintain efficiency within a system. And in school systems, it's important to have leaders that can help move the organization, keep them on the cutting edge, be creative to create new ideas. But it's also to have managers so that the systems, that things that are working, that they can maintain those particular things that are already in place. Leaders focus on transformation, they focus on long-term goals, whereas managers oftentimes are focused on reaching short-term goals. And lastly, leaders will sometimes they're willing to take risks, whereas managers are oftentimes trying to avoid risks because of the particular different assignments. The next thing I want to speak of is on the similarities between the two. Um, there are they are similar in a lot of ways. They both overlap, although they overlap in what they do in their assignments. They are still not the same. They They both have influence. They both work with people. They both are focused on trying to achieve goals. Both are needed, and also both are very, very important to organizations. Leadership, leaders and managers are very, very important. And lastly, both carry the burden and the responsibility of ensuring successful outcomes of the organization. When you look at the difference between the two, which is pretty interesting, the differences sometimes can be seen in that leaders initiate change and will create change, whereas managers oftentimes are trying to maintain and trying to sustain change. So once change has been initiated by a leader, then it's the manager's job to kind of sustain that change and make sure, because oftentimes when you're trying to implement new ideas and new concepts, then there needs to be a system to help create that change into a healthy habit that can function efficiently and effectively for you. Leaders also different. Another difference is that leaders will take new approaches to things, and they're promoting change, whereas a manager oftentimes is promoting stability, trying to make sure things are stable and things will function on their day-to-day activities. Leaders look to get people committed to ideas, to concepts. They have the ability to influence and help people connect and get committed to ideas, whereas managers are oftentimes looking to get things accomplished, but they also are looking to be conservative because, again, they don't typically won't be the ones taking the risk. It's not something that managers typically do, is take risks. This is interesting that the role of a leader is oftentimes their role will appear to be more glamorous from the outside looking in, and oftentimes it gets a lot of credit, whereas managers are often not really accredited their true value. And so sometimes people that are in management positions and leaders will seem to, that role will be more glamorous and more attractive sometimes if a person is really trying to look at who's the most important. But reality is both are very, very important. Both are very, very needed. The last component I want to talk about is the functions. And when we look at the functions of the two, between a leader and a manager, a leader, they function with a skill set. There's a skill set, and they're focused on getting getting things done, but they also focus on leading us into new areas. Managers, oftentimes, their focus is on doing the right things. And leadership is also one of the functions of leaders as well. Is they function. Leadership is an ability. Planning and budgeting oftentimes falls under the umbrella of the manager. They oftentimes they're doing a lot of planning. They're budgeting. They're looking at trying to manage processes. They focus on processes, systems, making sure those things are done consistently, day in and day out. Whereas a leader has to be able to function on, they're visionaries. So they have this, they function as a visionary. They're able to see and hopefully be able to project an image that people can buy into, that they can sow their emotions into. Another thing about leaders and their function, they have to be able to function with emotional intelligence. Both roles use both roles use emotional intelligence, but I think a leader is important. Oftentimes, he's able to function in his role because the relationship that he has with the organization on a day-to-day basis is not necessarily face-to-face or very, very close. Where a manager, when they communicate, they want to communicate email, they want to communicate face-to-face, they want to be more direct in their connection. And so understanding those two, I think, are very, very important. Lastly, a leader functions their ability to see and predict around the corner. They have the ability to see things prior to them unfolding, prior to it manifesting, prior to it being visibly, tangibly seen. Whereas a manager, typically, they prefer a lateral relationship where they can interact on a consistent day in and day out basis. And the last thing is that managers also function from, they're more action based. They use reflective methods and systematic planner when they look at their day-to-day activities. And so I think that that's all I have to share today, and thank you for your time.